Karen tried to steal my aisle seat and threatened to get the airline staff fired for taking my side. So, I humiliated her publicly and got her deboarded. AITA. So, this happened to my cousin a couple of months ago on a flight from Los Angeles to Chicago with United Airlines. Since he's tall, I'd booked him an exit row aisle seat well in advance and paid extra for it. Everything seemed set for a comfortable flight. But when he boarded and found his row, he was surprised to see someone already in his seat. The entire row was filled, but it was obvious that someone had, accidentally, taken his spot. Undeterred, he approached the woman sitting in his seat. We'll call her Karen. Cousin, excuse me, I believe this is my seat. Karen, barely glancing up. No, this can't be. I always book the aisle seat. Cousin, maybe you're in the wrong row? Would you mind checking? Karen, sighs dramatically. Look, I'm sure this is my seat. Maybe you made a mistake. Cousin, firmly. Well, my ticket says this is my seat. Perhaps we should ask the flight attendant to help us sort this out. He heads up to the front and explains the situation to a flight attendant, who confirms that, indeed, his seat assignment is correct. Instead of causing a scene, my cousin decides to have a little fun. He returns to Karen with a plan. Cousin, I spoke to the flight attendant and she confirmed this is my seat, but since you're so sure they offered me an upgrade to business class, would you like to switch with me and take the upgrade? Karen, interested. Oh, business class? Really? Cousin, yeah, though personally I prefer the legroom in the exit row. If you want, you can go up front, tell the flight attendant you're taking the business class upgrade meant for the passenger in 15C. Smugly, Karen grabs her bag and heads to the front of the plane, clearly delighted by the upgrade. My cousin takes his seat, finally able to relax, and he soon finds himself chatting with the other passengers in the row. They're relieved. Apparently Karen had been rather disruptive during boarding. He shows them his boarding pass to confirm that he's exactly where he's supposed to be. Now here's the twist. This United Airlines flight didn't even have a business class section. My cousin was well aware of that. So when Karen confidently asks the flight attendant for her upgrade, the attendant looks puzzled, explaining that no such seating exists on this flight. Karen's face drops as she realizes she's been played. Karen storms back, visibly irritated, and starts confronting my cousin. Karen, you lied. You told me there was an upgrade to business class. Cousin, innocently. Are you talking to me? Karen, obviously. You said there was an upgrade. Cousin, shrugging. Why would I do that? I just took the seat assigned to me, 15C. Where's your ticket? A nearby passenger chimes in to confirm that the seat does, in fact, belong to my cousin. The flight attendant, now following Karen back to the row, politely asks Karen to show her boarding pass. Karen rolls her eyes, loudly complaining about incompetent airline staff, and makes a big show of rummaging through her purse, her carry-on, even her coat pockets, all the while huffing about everyone wasting her time. After a few minutes, she finally finds her boarding pass but clutches it tightly, refusing to hand it over. She turns back to my cousin, her voice escalating. Karen, you've embarrassed me in front of everyone here. First, you try to steal my seat, and now you're making a scene. Flight attendant, ma'am, if you could please just show me your boarding pass so we can clear this up. Karen, ignoring the attendant. Do you know how much I fly? I always book aisle seats because I need them, but today I have to deal with some random guy who thinks he can take my seat? At this point, she's getting louder, and nearby passengers are shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Karen's frustration has grown into a full-blown tirade. She begins to accuse the airline of incompetence, blames the flight crew, and continues to insult my cousin, calling him a liar and a cheat. The flight attendant tries to calm her, pointing out that they're causing a delay. But Karen is relentless. She threatens to lodge a complaint that will cost the airline dearly and claims she's a loyal customer who deserves respect. Minutes go by, and passengers start murmuring in frustration, some even checking their watches. Finally, the captain is informed of the delay and comes over to assess the situation. Captain, calmly but firmly. Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass now, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave the plane. Karen, realizing she's lost control, reluctantly hands her boarding pass over to the captain. He glances at it, then looks back at her with a raised eyebrow. Captain. Ma'am, this boarding pass shows seat 22B. Your seat is 9 rows back, and it's a middle seat. The cabin falls silent as Karen's face goes pale. She tries a final, desperate excuse. Karen. But I can't sit in the middle seat. It's uncomfortable for me. This entire situation has been stressful. Shouldn't I get an upgrade for all this trouble? Captain. Ma'am, you'll need to either go to your assigned seat, or we'll have to ask you to deboard the plane. Frustrated and embarrassed, Karen glares at everyone around her, muttering curses under her breath. She begins gathering her things, her face flushed with anger as she makes her way down the aisle toward her actual seat, 22B. But she doesn't go quietly. She's muttering loudly about terrible customer service and clueless staff, casting hateful looks back at my cousin and the flight crew. As she finally takes her seat, security officers arrive, having been alerted by the crew. They speak with her briefly, and after a tense exchange, they ultimately escort her off the plane amidst relieved sighs from the passengers. My cousin settles comfortably back into his rightful exit row seat, and at last, the flight prepares for takeoff. The whole row shares a laugh about the ordeal. Meanwhile, Karen is left fuming as she's escorted off the flight, and my cousin can finally enjoy the legroom he paid for. My sister-in-law had a miscarriage and was crying at a family dinner. I tried to comfort her, saying I also had 4 miscarriages, so I understood her pain. She accused me of stealing her thunder and grabbing attention during her grief. AITA. I'm 34F, married, and mom to a 1-year-old daughter. My husband and I had a tough journey to parenthood, with 4 miscarriages before our daughter was finally born. I'm beyond grateful that she's here. I generally keep my fertility struggles private, only sharing them with my husband, my parents, and my 2 older sisters. My husband's sister, 31F, whom we love but who often acts like no one struggles as much as she does, recently experienced a miscarriage. She's been open about it on social media and with family, and I've reached out a few times to express my sympathy. I know she's hurting, and I genuinely feel for her. On Saturday night, we went to my in-laws for dinner. My sister-in-law was talking about her miscarriage and how hard it's been. My little girl was sitting on my lap, playing and clearly unaware of the conversation. At one point, my sister-in-law started crying, and my daughter, seeing her aunt upset, wanted to give her a kiss to make her feel better. She always does this when she sees someone sad. I told my sister-in-law that my daughter wanted to give her a kiss, but she responded with a harsh no, and looked visibly annoyed. My daughter looked confused, so I redirected her to give me a big kiss instead. My husband thought this reaction was rude, especially since our daughter was only trying to comfort her aunt. My sister-in-law then said it's painful to see both her brothers with happy, healthy kids when her child is gone. She explained that while she loves her niece, it hurts to be around her because she and her husband are still waiting for their chance. Her comment made me deeply uncomfortable, as I couldn't fathom feeling resentful of my niece or nephew just because of my struggles. She must have noticed my reaction, as she quickly added that we couldn't possibly understand her pain since we hadn't experienced such a loss. I should have stayed quiet, but her assumption was the last straw. I told her we do understand loss, as I had gone through 4 miscarriages myself. I explained that it took us years to finally have our daughter. My mother-in-law, who's compassionate and understanding, hugged me and expressed how sorry she was that I'd been through so much. My sister-in-law, clearly taken aback, asked why I'd never mentioned it. I said that I'm a private person, and I find it difficult to discuss my hardships because I know everyone has their own burdens. Later, my husband told me that his sister had called him, saying she felt I'd been competing with her by mentioning my miscarriages, and was trying to make the conversation about myself when her grief was still fresh. She also accused me of minimizing her loss by saying that everyone has struggles. My husband found her reaction amusing, but I'm left feeling a bit guilty. Maybe it wasn't the right moment to bring up my losses, but her assumption had struck a nerve.